Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello. Let me get my papers out of the way. Welcome. It's Friday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Actually, I stole that from a tweet I saw today. It actually said, may the 4th be with you and also with you. Which is that's a Catholic thing. Right. Hello, lovely day. And made even lovelier by the fact that it is Friday. Lot of people letting us know they really liked yesterday's show, which I think tells us something. And I will try very hard for all of our sanity and enjoyment to do more shows like that. For those of you who missed it, what happened is it was, a regular Thursday show with Tom Sokolowski, and I talked to Tom about what he knows about art. And the reason I did is I had seen a number of articles that in the last week that were art-related, but it set us off on a discussion. And so many of you have written and said, thank you so much. I found that so interesting, so entertaining. And, so not the usual depressing, hand-wringing, hair-pulling stuff that we usually peddle. And I know that when the show was over, I felt great. Jess felt, we were all smiling. I mean, that, I have to tell you, that's what my talk radio show was 25 years ago. And I forget. And people forget, and sometimes an old listener will remind me, remember when your show, you would talk about, this 1 hour and that the other, and it was not necessarily political, and we could go from, and I do remember. And because of that all happened before the just incredible takeover of talk radio by only conservative voices. And when that happened, and I became one of the last people, at least in our area, still putting forth an alternative point of view to the conservative point of view, I began to feel a real responsibility to do so. And so I politicized my show as a counterweight to entire stations that were peppering the public with just one point of view. And none of us are the better for this, what has happened. None of us are. And I will try. It's hard because this is the show has solidified into, again, there's an expectation on the part of many in the audience that I will continue to be that counter voice. But let's not kid ourselves. There's no way that my voice, now relegated to the internet because not a radio station in town will have it, there's no way that even if I were to do nothing but politics, that's going to somehow make a difference or have an impact. So I'm going to try. I can't say I'll succeed, but I'm going to try to broaden this show out like it used to be, so that any and all subjects are fitting and proper for conversation, and we'll all be the better for it, I'm sure. Of course, what I have here in front of me today is mostly more political stuff, again, because I do generally get my fodder from the news and from the papers, and it's difficult to get away from the reality of our extremely fractured and divided nation. It simply is, and that's a fact. It's been quantified and it's been reported on, studies done. I was just, as the show began, reading a piece about a British scientific study done by research at the University College London, in which they used the brain imaging, MRIs, to look at differences between the brains of young people who identified as conservatives and young people who identified as liberals. Now, I never know if these kinds of things are of any value at all, but it always has seemed to me, and this is with no MRIs and no scientific data whatsoever to back me up, that the conservative mindset is more fearful and the liberal mindset is more hopeful. And I don't see how anybody would disagree with that. I mean, I think I've got just mounds of circumstantial data to prove my point. But this study apparently shows just that in terms of the part of the brain that is activated when we feel under threat is activated a lot more in conservative brains when looking at, they show them pictures and they look at what their brains are doing. So you see a picture of, I don't know, like a black man, and a lot of conservative brains go haywire into fight and flight and all this kind of stuff. The rational parts of their brain go to sleep. And then the liberal brain does not necessarily do the same thing. And it's an interesting piece in Alternate. I don't know. I don't want to get into the brain stuff because I can't pretend to really have any expertise in it. But Joshua Holland, who wrote this piece, it is interesting. He says it's fascinating how a political movement, a huge political movement, conservative movement, in the wealthiest, most secure nation in the world, views their environment with such dread. And the article does point out that there is an entire industry, and we know this, that is geared to stoking that dread and fear. That's how Glenn Beck came into our view. That's what a lot of people who peddle their wares on talk radio now, almost uniformly, as I say many a time, this kind of very conservative talk, that if your inclination is to be fearful and all you listen to is Fox News and Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, you are having that constantly underscored and even inflated that you're right. You should be afraid. Be very afraid. And the author points out that one of the more significant trends in our country's political discourse, if you can call it discourse, I don't. It's more like a mud fight. But one of the more significant trends is the mainstreaming of what used to be considered whacked out ideas. So that something that 30 years ago would be whispered around in little groups on the fringes. Now, because of the Glenn Becks and the others who traffic in this stuff, has become mainstreamed. And mainstream can also mean respectable. It's these wacky ideas are given standing. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it play out. And the author here does a funny little thing. He said, consider what it must be like to be a real fervent Rush Limbaugh fan, or someone who thinks Michelle Bachmann is a serious candidate for the presidency. I mean, really, because these are our neighbors. Put yourself in their shoes, if you can, and consider really the nightmarish, terrifying landscape that they inhabit. And then he does a little thing. Here's their landscape. The White House has been usurped by a Kenyan socialist who hatched an elaborate plot to pass himself off as a citizen of the United States, a plot the media refused to even investigate. The president doesn't just claim the right to assassinate suspected terrorists who are beyond the reach of law enforcement. He may be planning on rounding up his ideological opponents and putting them into concentration camps if he is reelected. He may, in fact, have murdered a blogger. Are they saying this, that he murdered Breitbart? I guess so. He may, in fact, have murdered a blogger who was critical of his administration, but authorities, again, refuse to investigate. At the very least, we know this. He is plotting to disarm the American public after the election, in accordance with a secret deal cut with the United Nations and possibly with the assistance of foreign troops. Okay, now, that's the kind of stuff that was fringe. It is not so fringe anymore. All you have to do is listen to Glenn Beck. He was the one who was peddling ad nauseum that FEMA was setting up these concentration camps. Fox News carried this. Well, when he was on Fox News. So Fox News, a major network, had a show in which this kind of crap was being peddled. And then when, under some pressure, I guess, he came out and said he had found out that this actually was, in fact, not true, then others in his camp immediately saw that as another cover-up, that the media had gotten to him and were telling him, you shut up and say it isn't so. We know that umpteen Republican elected officials have hinted that they do not believe, or even flat out said that they do not believe the president is an American and consequently not eligible to be president. The NRA regularly peddles the fact that Obama is intent, in fact plotting, to take your guns away. And so if you have that kind of a brain to start with, that you're susceptible to looking at the world as a scary place, and then you subject yourself on a daily basis, maybe even hours a day, to people who will constantly sort of stoke that, who will excite that part of your brain. It ain't the better part of your brain. It's the very primitive part of your brain. And facts, as we've talked about before, we read the obit about facts is dead. Facts died after a long, long, extraordinary life, but it be dead. Facts have no standing in this world. Because here's a fact. We, in this country, are safer and more secure than at any point in human history. Now, I suppose that could be argued. You could say, well, what about Al-Qaeda? What about rogue nukes? I mean, but the numbers show it. I mean, violent crime in the U.S. is at the lowest point since 1968. You read the Drudge Report, you listen to Fox, you don't get this at all. I've often complained that if you look at our local news, television news, I mean, it's just one, people killed because, their car, people killed in cars, people killed in robberies, people killed, and yet our crime rate is down. Death by car, down. But media can't exist if it doesn't raise our adrenaline levels. So this is part of the problem. This guy says, again, continue to stroll in the shoes of a true believer on the right. Imagine how frightening it would be to believe Frank Gaffney, a former American Secretary of Defense and a leading neoconservative voice, when he claims that the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated the highest levels of our government. Or imagine when Newt Gingrich says that Sharia law poses a grave threat to our way of life. And you know that there are millions of Americans who gobble this stuff up. Not to say there aren't real threats, but the ones so often that the conservatives get all a Twitter about are often ludicrous and wholly manufactured. Joshua Holland ends his piece with this, perhaps the most frightening part of all of this for the true believers is that even though these things aren't just fringe ideas anymore, circulating, in forwarded emails from person to person, they are now discussed by influential politicians on leading cable news outlets. And if you believe all this stuff and you look and you see that the government and the media mostly are refusing to investigate these terrible things that are happening. If you believe that the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated our government at the highest level, you've got to wonder then why we aren't pulling out all the stops to ferret them out and save our country. That one ideological camp is so consumed with fear also has a lot to do with why conservatives and folks like us share so little common ground. Because people like us, I do think, tend to be a little more fact-based and reasonable. But going back to the brain, if it is your amygdala, I think that's how it's pronounced, that is getting activated, that's the sort of fight and flight thing, it takes over and utterly dominates the brain structures so that the part of the brain dedicated to reason can't be heard. It's tapping on the shoulder, but absolutely not getting heard. And so because I reasonably cannot ever comprehend how people, otherwise intelligent people, can believe some of the things they believe now. I'm much more willing to believe that there is something about, that different people were born with, a kind of a brain and a kind of a brain chemistry. I mean, I know I was born with a brain that does not produce enough, what do you call that stuff? Melatonin? No, not melatonin. That's good. Serotonin. I don't have it. So my nature, even as a child, and you can see pictures of me as a 2, 3, 4-year-old, and I look like the saddest little kid in the universe. I mean, I didn't have enough of the chemical that makes a person feel light and happy. And it wasn't until they invented antidepressants and somebody said, "Here, take this. See if it helps." That, I became like a normal person. Oh, this is what it's like. How wonderful. How wonderful. So our brains are different, and some of it, and it doesn't seem outlandish to me to believe that some brains, if you have a certain kind of a brain, it would predispose you to be vulnerable to, kinds of scare tactics like this. So I will absolutely stand by my gut feeling that people who identify as conservatives, especially on these kinds of issues, have something going on in their brain chemistry where that primitive part is very easily excited. When I was visiting family, extended family in California last week, my first cousin picked me up to have lunch. She is a college graduate. Her children are extraordinarily successful people. Her grandchildren, extraordinarily successful little kids. These are bright people. These are, And she said, "I just need to talk politics with you for a second." I said, "Please, no." I said, "Please, no, don't." Because she isn't sure Obama is an American. And then she told me that she just can't stand. What she wanted to tell me is she can't stomach. All her anxiety is now not focused on Obama so much. It's turned to Michelle Obama. And she's telling me how much she just can't stand her. And I was dumbstruck. I said, I think my understanding is she has a higher favorability rating than anybody in the country. Everybody likes Michelle. Oh, how could they? Why, she's so arrogant. I cannot believe that trip she took to Spain. And did you know her daughter went off to Mexico with God knows how many secret service? And I'm looking at this person who I know has a good heart and even a head that functions, and I can't. And I'm thinking, what the holy heck? So I said, say what you want. I don't agree with you, but I don't want to talk politics with you because we are not going to come to any terms. And in fact, I'd end up wanting to strangle her. And this was a family event, and you don't want to get into it. So in my own family, I have people who react like this. And they don't even know why. At a party later that evening, one of her oldest friends came up to me and he said, "Are you the cousin with the talk show?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "What are we going to do about her?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, he said, "She's like a birther. She's this, she's that." He said, "She's nuts on this issue." And I said, "Well, I said, my guess is it's that Michelle Obama is black. I guess that's what it must be." And he said, "I think it is too." He said, her father, no blood relative of mine, her father was a racist. And I said, well, then maybe if she grew up being fearful or having a certain idea of black people and it's in her bone marrow, she can't get it out. I don't know. But the fact is we as Americans have to deal with this because so many of our loved ones and our neighbors and the voters are infected and affected like this. This came to mind because there was a piece in the Times today about the all-important swing state of Ohio and how while it, like Pennsylvania, is home to mill workers or former mill workers and coal miners, and it's a blue-collar, working-class population. And the article says, and that's why it's tough for Obama. They quote people in Ohio to just give us a sense of what people are saying. And they quoted, I think, a county clerk in a what is a Democratic county, saying it'll be very hard for Obama to win that county. And he flat out said it's because, no one's going to say it, but it's because he's black. And then here's a woman in that county, bank employee, Lisa Pelosi. She says about Obama, he was like, here I am, I'm black and I'm proud. To me, he didn't have a platform. Black people voted him in. That's why he won. It was black ignorance. Do you know how many people there are? Well, you do, because you know them. You know them. They're in your family. Here's another woman. She voted for him. She's the owner of Petey's Brunch and Bar. It's a diner in Steubenville. And she said, she was regularly listening to her customers talk about Obama in this way. And she said, it really shows how divided we still are. Blacks came out to vote for the first time because he was black, and you had all these whites saying, oh, look, see, there's another vote from some drug addict. She knows she's cooking eggs and listening to the conversation. See, let's talk about art. It's so much more pleasant. Let me get your stuff in here. I'm not. Maybe I should get a break out of the way. Okay? Let me do that, and I'll regroup, rearm, and come back. Just a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
If your walls could talk, what would they say?
I have held the same mirror for 13 years.
I have been decorated with purple dinosaurs, baseball teams, and football helmets.
I have witnessed 33 Thanksgiving dinners and 1 wedding proposal.
I have tiny notches marking the growth of 3 children.
I have caused a learning disability.
I am the reason that a 5th grader simply can't sit still.
I am responsible for a 5-year-old's rage.
Just because you can't see lead paint doesn't mean it's not on walls, doors, windows, and sills. Today, lead paint poisoning affects over 1 million children. If your home was built before 1978, your family could be at risk. Let's make all kids lead-free kids. Log on to leadfreekids.org or call 800-424-LEAD.
I am the reason a child has trouble hearing.
If your walls could talk, what would they say?
Brought to you by the Coalition to End Childhood Lead Poisoning, EPA, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual restaurant guide magazine is available now. Plus, Christina Perri, Marilyn Manson, and Pop at the City Theater. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com. Get Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen Live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Referring back to yesterday's more benign show when we were talking about art with former director of the Warhol Museum, Tom Sokolowski. As I said, I had found a lot of art-related articles, but then on top of it, I get an email from Lori, who says that she said, have you seen these sculptures in Gateway Center? I mean, they're just delightful. There's all these, they're real-life sculptures of people doing ordinary things, and it's in, it's a precursor, I guess, to the Three Rivers Arts Festival, which is coming up in a month. And I mentioned her email to Tom, and he cannot. He saw them because he lives in Gateway Center. He saw the sculptures, and he hated them. So we had this thing where Lori had found them so delightful, and Tom said, "Ugh, ugh," and I was worried that he would have offended Lori, and Lori wrote back and said, no offense taken about the sculptures. I don't really know art, but I would be offended if someone told me Zenyatta, Horse of the Year 2011, was a piece of crap. Was that the female horse? You're not into horses at all. Yeah, I only vaguely start paying attention to horses when, because this is the Kentucky Derby week. Yeah. And Lori went on to say, I enjoyed hearing Tom's opinion. He's an expert. Have a good day. Lori, you're a sweetie. Yeah, but he also, I maintain, screw the experts. If something gives you pleasure, that's it. The Supreme Court, didn't they famously say that they knew pornography when they saw it? It was hard to define, but I know it when I see it. With art, I'm sorry. If it's art to you, it's art. But he was saying if it's public art, like these statues are, then whoever chooses that art, he thinks, has a greater responsibility to elevate our perception of what art is or can be. And speaking of these sculptures, Jess was, you were having dinner or having a drink outside last night downtown, and she thought she saw a homeless man peeing in the bushes. Did you not? Am I reporting this correctly?
Correct.
She looked over and thought, oh my God, there's a homeless man peeing in the bushes.
I have my glasses on.
She didn't have her glasses on, in her defense. And then she realized it was one of those sculptures. But did you ever go look closely at it? What was the guy doing? He wasn't peeing. I mean, it's
probably
gardening or something. Because I mean, it's people doing everyday kinds of things. By the way, there is a big piece in the Post-Gazette today about the sculptures. A very positive piece, I might add, although I didn't read the whole thing. Oh my God, there's a homeless man. But that shows how lifelike they are, especially if you're not wearing your glasses. The other subject. Let me just say one more thing before we get into some more heavy subjects again. I can't get enough of watching black men say hi to each other. I just so love it. And where you see a lot of it is at the bus stop. So after the show, I go stand at my bus stop. And, it's a busy street. And some people are standing and some people are walking by. And it's not unusual in the course of my stay at the stop to see 2 or 3 people, hey, see each other and greet each other. And this wonderful choreography that goes on, this ballet that it's just, and you can see varying degrees of it, where 2 men who really know each other, and then there's a real, yes, there's that fist bump, then there's the sort of elbow bump, the shoulder thing, and then there might be there's this whole choreographed routine. And it's interesting to see people who don't really know each other that well do it, because then it's sort of but it's sort of, compulsory or cursory or something. But I so love it. Hello, caller.
Oh, hi, Lynn. Sorry, I'll let you go through your saying hi bit while I say good morning to you and Jess.
Hi.
And I'll give you a high five or a fist bump or whatever, too.
Oh, I love that. Don't you love it?
Yeah. The one thing, and I don't know if I have very much to add to this, but here's my question about these people that you were talking about who believe these things, like the FEMA camps, and this man is going to disarm us. At some point, doesn't it become like that crazy preacher who kept saying the world's going to end on this day and the world's going to end on this day? What do they think when it just doesn't happen?
Well, that's a good question, because they were remember how gun sales and ammo sales just skyrocketed when Obama was elected, but before he was took the oath of office.
Well, at one point they said that they were afraid we were going to run out of bullets.
That's right.
We weren't manufacturing enough bullets. Well, we're still, as far as I know, we're still in the black on bullets.
Yeah, but it was. But so, and then he takes office. Been in office for over 3 years, and not only hasn't there been any trouble with gun for the gun people, they have expanded their powers. I mean, as we see by the stand your ground laws all over the country. Obama's done absolutely nothing about guns and never said he would. And yet they peddle the same stuff again this time. And I get, maybe it's Michael, they don't pay attention. They just don't.
It's not only that Obama hasn't done anything about guns. The whole Democratic Party,
they've given it up.
Made a peep about it.
Well, I have to admit, I threw in the towel. I said, we lost. It's over. It's finished. It's gone. It's a loser. So
in that respect, I think the point of my call is that I think you are being a little too charitable towards them by saying, oh, well, it must be some sort of brain
problem
defect. I think what it is actually willful ignorance. It's a willful ignorance, and in that respect, I really don't feel sorry for them in any way. I just feel anger towards them.
Well, I don't feel sorry for them. Their fear makes me afraid, because a fearful and ignorant population is a dangerous population.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And they scare me. And when you have a so-called democracy where people can vote, and yet you see that millions upon millions of the voters literally don't know the facts, it's unsettling. We know what people who don't have the facts and are all worked up are capable of.
And I guess I'm not being helpful getting on your radio show and saying them and those people and them. Because you know what? I honestly think we should round them up and put them in concentration camps. But, oh, no. See, now look what I did. Oh, no. Stoking the fire.
All right, you.
I kid. Have a good weekend, love.
You too.
Talk to you later.
Bye. Oh, the people who are afraid of vaccines, all of a sudden, they won't vaccinate their children because, like Michelle Bachmann. I talked to a woman who had her child vaccinated and became retarded immediately and grew a six legs and, those people. Well, guess what? The United States last year had its worst year for measles in a long, long time. Measles were eradicated, guys. And they say that 86% of these cases occurred in people who had not been vaccinated. Again, so it's like they're afraid of the wrong thing. And their fear ends up endangering the rest of us. Let me get up to date here on your contributions through email. Ray says, I become less hateful, a little, of the rank and file neocon because I do believe Buddha is right, that anger comes from fear. Oh, I do too. And these people are just fearful. But what I said, people who are afraid are dangerous. So I don't necessarily hate them, but they scare the bejeebers out of me because they're one step away from becoming a mob. When you're not using that part of your head that thinks, and a whole bunch of individuals aren't using a part of their head that thinks, and they work themselves individually and collectively up into a lather, and even if the thing they're scared about doesn't even exist, like concentration camps and coming to take your guns, they, as a group, can become a mob, can endanger all of us. Going back to Ray. I have become more hateful, a lot, of the leaders who knowingly stoke the fear. Yes, that leads ahead. Those, you mean like a Glenn Beck. The cynical making money off it. The politicians cynically getting votes off it. Yeah. My contempt for them knows no bounds. Ray, I thought you were a Catholic. What's all this Buddha quoting you're doing? Okay, Buddha says holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned. And I guess Buddha also says, or is this you saying it, Ray? You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about how some people, when they get old, all that seems left is bitterness. And what an awful, awful thing. And I said, you know, regret can lead to bitterness, or a sense of having lost something can lead to bitterness. Bitter people, I mean, it's like almost like a suicide of sorts. I mean, you destroy your own spirit, your enjoyment of life. And it's always true that, you know, the wrong attitude, the wrong thing in our own heads, emotion, only hurts us. Only hurts us. As I watched my father decline and die, he had been this extraordinarily imposing man in every way. His voice, his stature, his personality. I remember talking to one of his business associates, and he said, when Norman walks into a room, he owns it immediately. And yes, he was like that. And yet he was the gentlest of men, but with this imposing voice and imposing stature. And as he aged, in the last 15 years of his life, I'll say, when I would say, hey, Dad, how you doing? Invariably, he'd answer, I'm diminished. And he always had a way with words. And you know what? He had the right words. He was diminishing. He was growing shorter. He was literally physically shrinking. He kept that wonderful voice till the end. But he was literally shrinking and shriveling up. And this is what happens. We diminish. And at the end, if you live a long life, you're lying there truly diminished. And it almost seems that what's left is your essence. That's how it felt as I watched him. And what was amazing, even in the last days of his life, that all that was there, was love. With the last bit of energy he had, he was filled with love. His last words was, I love you, with smiles, just filled with love. That's where you want to be in life. You do not want to end it as a wrinkled, bitter prune. If when every last bit of you is finished and what's left is something so wondrous like love, then you've done it right. Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Is this Lynn?
Yes.
Hi. My name is Sandy.
Hi,
you may not remember me. I was captain of your bus to Washington.
Oh, yes. Hi, Sandy. I do remember you.
I wanted to call and share some good news with you.
Good.
My daughter and her boyfriend met on your bus going to Washington.
You mean they hadn't known each other before?
No, they didn't know each other before.
Oh, my God, I know where this is going. Okay.
And they was in the process of joining the Peace Corps.
Oh, my God.
And he had decided to join the Navy, and they decided they would date, and they would see each other till they sat next to each other on the bus all day. And their uncle sat next to you, and I was sitting in front of you with my other daughter.
I remember you. I remember, and I do absolutely remember you.
Right. And they
and your daughter.
They exchanged numbers, and they decided to date until it was time for her to leave for the Peace Corps, and he would leave for the Navy. And they dated about 10 months, and they decided to split up, but decided that they missed each other so much, and they're getting married.
Yes! Yes! The Sanity Tour begot a marriage! I am so thrilled.
Yep, it's very exciting. She's stationed in Tanzania.
Wow.
And he's living in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And they can't, they still have commitments, so they're going to come back to Pittsburgh. We don't know when. They're going to try to come back sometime in August, get married, and then they have to go back to their jobs.
Oh.
Because they both, she wants to fulfill her commitment.
So they both are in for a tour, but they are going to marry and then go back, separate again to do. Oh.
Yes, because she wants to fulfill her commitment. Oh, so she'll be gone until August of next year. So they'll be separated, but they've definitely decided that they want to be together. So I thought that you would enjoy hearing some good news.
That is just, you have so made my day. I can't stop smiling. That is fantastic. Oh, congratulations. I'm so happy. Give them my best.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. That is so wonderful. Love it. I love it. Okay. Here is another email. My leisure world is filled with many arch conservatives. I just smile, nod, and change the subject whenever possible, since I know that any disagreement would cause World War III. I came across the Michelle phenomenon within the last 6 months or so, so this must be something. I had not encountered it myself. The rightists have started hurling vitriolic hatred at Michelle. The first time I heard the comments, I laughed because I thought it was a joke. What on earth has this poor woman done to cause this hatred? Other than living, well, I think because she's living in the White House. That's what I think that's what she did. She's flying around on Air Force One. She dared to take a vacation, which required Secret Service protection. And remember, they thought she took too many people with her. Her mother, her daughters, who knows who else, staying at nice hotel. Where was she supposed to stay at? Motel 6? And the emailer goes on saying, but then I realized she's also living as a woman. The white male conservatives have combined three things they truly hate into one person. Black, liberal, female. Michelle Obama. That's from Mary. Yeah, but my cousin is a white female who still thinks she's a Democrat, by the way. I've always been a Democrat, she says. Oh, God. Okay. And let me say again that on so many levels, that woman my cousin, I love her. I mean, she's part of I love her. I love her like you'd love and you just, the despair you feel when somebody you know is a good person in so many ways goes off the rails on this one thing. And there's no way you can reach her. No way at all. Yeah. I got to take another break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Opera, City Theater, Symphony, History Museum, and Carnegie Museums. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's only online deal site where the deals don't expire. Check out this week's big deal. Over 40% off authentic laser lipo treatments from FDA-approved Zerona. Bergbargains.com. Sewickley Med Spa provides the most advanced treatments in aesthetic medicine, including Botox, Restylane, Juvederm, Radius, medical-grade chemical peels, and sclerotherapy using a sclera for spider vein correction. We offer a relaxing environment and only the best products for your complete satisfaction. Conveniently located at 435 Broad Street in downtown Sewickley. Call 412-259-8628 to find out about this month's specials. Sewickley Med Spa.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn@pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Let me just direct my attention very quickly to this, the Chinese dissident and how the Republicans are trying to make hay out of this. I mean, come on, guys. It's not like the U.S. has the ability to. I mean, there are bigger things afoot here. This is the number one creditor nation here. You know, this is these two huge nations. You cannot. We're doing what obviously we can for this guy and his family. And in fact, there's been some really lousy reporting going on in an effort to make the Obama administration look bad. This in USA Today that had an exclusive interview with him and his family. It says some media reports had suggested that Chen was unsatisfied with what the embassy in the United States had done for him. In his interview with USA Today, he said Chen said what happened at the embassy was a true breakthrough. Here's his quote: "The Chinese government has promised to guarantee my civil liberties. Is this not a breakthrough? But its implementation is very important. It must be fully implemented, and this has not happened yet." He also said he never had said he wanted to leave China with Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton. He had never said that. So stay tuned for more, but whatever. Efforts to politicize that are absurd. Absurd. I also want, again, a more somber note here. Sorry. Again, got this from USA Today. There are 140 plus people in Europe who are alive today because of organ donations from our service members killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. And I don't know that that has been known. But because there's such a short life for these organs once they're harvested, they're going to go to people in need in Europe. It says here that the rate of organ donation from American service members is higher than at Landstuhl, which is where the grievously wounded are taken in Germany, is higher at that hospital than at any other hospital in Germany. So that is something, again, that we talk about the sacrifice that our troops are making over there. Those who make the ultimate sacrifice have, through their sacrifice, saved lives in Europe. And because of the focus on Afghanistan, that continuing war, and the promise that our troops will be withdrawn in 2 years, I'm going to take this opportunity to end this week on the somewhat somber note, and I hope you'll stay. You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the names of the latest of our service people who have, in fact, died in that war that we pay no attention to. And I must say, as somebody who watches this, that there's been a big uptick in the last month. And I don't see that reported anywhere, but there have been times in the last year where you can go weeks without any deaths. And in the last, I'd say, 3 weeks, it's been bad. It's been bad. Tell me if you've heard about it. You haven't. The Department of Defense has now identified 1,943 American service members who have died in the Afghan war. These are the latest reported deaths. Bruce K. Clark, 43, Captain, Army, Spencerport, New York. Nicholas Dickett, 23, Sergeant, Army, Rochester, Minnesota. Scott Pruitt, 38, Master Sergeant, Marines, Gautier, Mississippi. Christian Sanicolas, 20, Private, Army, Anaheim, California. Joseph Fankhauser, 30, Staff Sergeant, Marines, Mason, Texas. Nicholas Johnson, 27, Chief Warrant Officer, Army, San Diego. Michael Metcalf, 22, Private, Army, Boynton Beach, Florida. Dean Schaefer, 23, Sergeant, Army, Pekin, Illinois. Don Veray, 25, Chief Warrant Officer, Army, Hawaii. Jonathan Walsh, 28, First Lieutenant, Cobb, Georgia. Chris Workman, 33, Sergeant, Army, Boise, Idaho. Andrew Britton Mahalo, 25, Staff Sergeant, Army, Simi Valley, California. Brandon Eggleston, 29, Staff Sergeant, Army, Candler, North Carolina. Moises Gonzalez, 29, Specialist, Army, Huntington, California. Dick Lee Jr., 31, Sergeant, Army, Orange Park, Florida. Christopher Moscow, 28, Lieutenant, Navy, Pittsford, New York. Jason Edens, 22, Specialist, Army, Franklin, Tennessee. Benjamin Neal, 21, Specialist, Army, Orfordville, Wisconsin. Manuel J. Vasquez, 22, Specialist, Army, West Sacramento, California. Aaron Faust, 22, Corporal, Marines, Louisville, Kentucky. Tanner Higgins, 23, Sergeant, Army, Yantis, Texas. Alex Martinez, 21, Corporal, Marines, Elgin, Illinois. David Nowachik, 32, Staff Sergeant, Army, Dyer, Indiana. Abraham Tarwo, 25, Lance Corporal, Marines, Providence, Rhode Island. Philip Schiller, 21, Specialist, Army, The Colony, Texas. Trevor Stanley, 22, Construction Man, Navy, Virginia Beach. Tyler Smith, 24, Staff Sergeant, Army, Licking, Missouri. Ramon Capat, 22, Lance Corporal, Marines, Tacoma, Washington. Michael Palazzo, 23, Corporal, Marines, Lake Elsinore, California. Christopher Brown, 26, Staff Sergeant, Army, Columbus, Ohio. Antonio C. Burnside, 31, Specialist, Army, Great Falls, Montana.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.